Reengage because
Is it
our
working?
marriage was in trouble and
Yeah.
I didn't know where to turn.
Because of my unfaithfulness and selfishness.
We were out of options.
We wanted to take our marriage from a good one to a great one.
On the outside, we looked perfect, but on the inside, we were broken.
We were on the verge of divorce. I was full of bitterness and anger.
I was unfaithful in my marriage.
Recovering from infidelity and separation.
Because our marriage was falling apart as a consequence of my struggle with alcoholism.
A struggle with pornography that was just leaving her hurt.
I think my wife started realizing, being empty nesters coming up real soon, that she was going to be stuck just with me, and we need to do something to make our marriage better.
And we needed help reconnecting and communicating with each other.
We came to Reengage because our marriage was in desperate need of a resurrection.
I wanted out, but I knew God didn't want me to give up on our marriage.
The first day we walked into Reengage, I felt
skeptical,
a little awkward,
very ashamed,
overwhelmed, really angry.
And I really wanted to hide.
He wanted to come, and I came along practically kicking and screaming.
I felt nervous, I felt embarrassed, but I felt hopeful after we heard the testimony that night.
We felt an energy that was hard to describe, a transparency that we had not seen before.
We felt hopeless, but knew we were in the right place.
When we started Reengage, we rated our marriage 4 out of 10.
0.5.
2. 7.0. 1.
About 4.
6.
0.
0. Just with a little hope.
7.
A 3, but I think that was way too high.
One of the biggest things I realized
was we couldn't do this alone.
Our marriage was a covenant and not a contract.
A covenant that did not depend on circumstances and was a lifelong commitment.
Other marriages had survived what we had been through and were thriving.
We had a good marriage by the world's standard, but God's plan for marriage and our marriage was much greater.
We don't have to settle for just getting by.
I thought we were good communicators, but we really weren't.
How I have been encouraged to lead my family well.
Yeah, my spouse was not the problem, I was.
How controlling I was in the relationship. I've been trying to change him all these years.
We both need work, and we both need grace.
It was not about fixing each other, but it was about God transforming us into people that would love each other the way that we had committed to love each other.
Christ changed our marriage by changing my heart and leading me back to Him and to my wife.
It took time, but we had hope where there was none.
He laid down His life for us. I'm called to lay down my life for her.
By applying and pursuing the Word of God in our life.
To remain faithful, even through difficult times.
Teaching me how to lead biblically.
By showing me what it meant to be a godly wife. My identity is in Christ alone. Not in my marriage, not in my husband, not in how good or bad we're doing, but that God is the only one who can satisfy me.
Christ changed our marriage by resurrecting.
One of the things that I liked about Reengage
was the connection we made with our leaders and with our group.
It started awkward at first, but we were really close friends towards the end.
Lasting friendships that go on to this day.
We got to focus one night a week on just building our marriage. We became fully known and accepted.
We weren't alone in our situation.
Seeing all the other couples that had the same issues that we had.
We're able to see how God was restoring other couples' marriages.
And it was. Most every week we showed up, we laughed, and we were surprised.
Now our marriage is characterized by grace,
understanding,
thankfulness, and joy.
Just daily, consistent communication and oneness.
By trying to make each other the highest priority instead of our children, which has always been our struggle.
Honesty and just plain fun.
Forgiveness,
friendship,
our perseverance, commitment.
By looking to God as the authority.
I love my husband more every day.
By biblical application and seeking Jesus in all things.
If you're considering coming to Reengage,
the one thing I want you to know
is that you're not alone.
It is a safe place to reconnect.
Everything is possible with God.
And the only way we can live the marriages that He's planned for us is by living by His Word.
Just living authentically in community will be a game changer for you.
It isn't a quick fix, but Reengage gave me the opportunity and the tools that I needed to start working on our marriage and to be the leader that my wife needed me to be.
No matter how bad things are,
do not give up on your marriage.
God can heal and create something beautiful even from the messiest marriage. Any marriage can benefit from it. You're going to grow if you dive in.
Stop considering and do it. It's an incredible investment into your marriage.
Let us process this thing called marriage with you. You will not be disappointed.
So whether your marriage is a 1 and you want to get to a 2, or an 8 and you want to get to a 9, Reengage is a safe place to reconnect, reignite, and resurrect your marriage. No matter where you are, you can grow in your relationship with Christ and begin to experience God's plan for your marriage.
We're so glad you're here. Welcome to Reengage.
Okay. Yeah, that's I like that. I mean, I'm glad I played it after all, because there's a good cross-sectional, bunch of different types of situations, and I really do believe Reengage works for all of them. But I'm just going to go through this definition of what Reengage is, because it allows us to have the right expectations of what it is that you're taking a look at. So Reengage is a marriage discipleship process designed to join you and your spouse in a couple small group with a facilitator couple to work through marriage enrichment. So that's a mouthful, but so I'm breaking it down here with the first phrase in there. It's a marriage discipleship process. That means that we believe marriage is the context that God gave you to grow closer to Him, not just to one another. So what I mean is, we believe that Reengage, or that marriage, is almost like the opportunity God gave you to grow closer to Him. It's often, for a lot of people, they get to a point where I want a better marriage, but I don't know how to get there. I don't know how to address things. Well, so I'm getting texts, people asking me for help with stuff. That's hard for me. Let me try to do this real quickly. Ashley, are you in the room? It says Dacus family. Well, let me see if I can throw somebody back into the room. Okay, Austin, there we go. I did it. All right, back to this. This is I think for me and my ADD, this is like the most challenging thing ever. Okay, so anyway, it's back to, I'm gonna try to share the screen again. Here we go. All right, so it is basically the, this is the context that God's given you to, yes, work on your marriage, but we actually see that the most progress happens as people work on their relationships with God. And so it's really, and it's only through Christ that we believe ultimate real change is gonna happen. Another way to say this is a process. It's a marriage discipleship process. It's not a quick fix. Quick fixes are usually temporary and shallow, honestly. If you go to a weekend retreat, they're great, but it's sort of like a shot in the arm. It doesn't last more than a couple, that high that you're on together doesn't last more than a week or two. You can even do marriage counseling, which often lasts maybe 2 or 3 weeks for people. It doesn't, the quick fix approach, I think, rarely lasts. And it helps, but this is a process. It took a long time to get where you are. Sometimes it's going to take time to grow and change as well. So that's the first thing. It's a marriage discipleship process. It's also a couple's small group. This is not a class. You're not here to learn a bunch of new things. Rather, you're here to learn and grow together. So the class goal is learning. A small group goal, though, is application and transformation. And so another thing is it's not marriage counseling, which I think is actually a great advantage. You're coming into a couple's small group and you're not focusing on you or you and your spouse. You're focusing on what God's word is saying to you as a group. And the advantages of getting your eyes off your marriage and onto God's word and being side by side with other couples is immense. I think it's God's design, honestly, that we get our eyes off of us somewhat and start seeing what God is just saying to His people. And the great advantage I see over and over is, I'll be really honest, I have a really hard time hearing things directly from my wife. She could tell me what I'm doing or where I need to grow or what I'm not doing, and my automatic responses, my defenses go up, or I'm thinking of like why she's wrong or how she ought to take a bite of her own medicine or take whatever. These things go on in my heart and what I'm thinking. But when I remember going through Reengage and overhearing other couples having conversations or challenges that were similar to ours, and being able to hear what my wife has been trying to tell me through other couples talking to each other. Am I making sense? It's just the guards go down when you are around other people who are learning the same things, going through the same process. And so the couple small group, I believe, is a process just blessed by God. He wants us to gather together in groups. And and it just works. It's also done with a facilitator couple. I need to check my chat again. Okay, so a facilitator couple, what it means is you're leaders. They're not counselors. They're not teachers. They're just shepherd leaders of the group. They're going through the same journey as you guys are. And our leaders have been through Reengage, but they're going through the exact same homework and assignments. They're having the same discussions that week as you are. And so they're not coming down from their mountain to impart their wisdom to you. In some cases, you might be in groups with leaders who are younger than you, who haven't been married as long. But the facilitator's job is to get to be model group members, modeling what it looks like to share vulnerably, to focus on their own issues, to keep the conversation going in the right direction. They know where we're going with the conversation, but you're not looking to them as the resident experts, but it actually makes for a really safe group environment. So it's a facilitator couple leading the discussion. And then the goal is to join you in your marriage, you and your spouse in marriage enrichment. This is, in other words, okay, first of all, this is for everyone. This is not just for people with real like deeply broken marriages or deeply hurting marriages, but it's for people who are aiming for oneness and growth wherever you're at as a couple. And so the goal is oneness. If things seem really hard, for example, if you guys can't have a conversation without arguing, it might be tempting to settle for just coexisting in an undivorced state, just settling for like, okay, if we can get along as roommates, that's good. We've seen couples go from, I don't think that's God's goal. His goal is oneness as a couple, and that's what you're aiming for. We've seen many couples honestly go from barely alive to richly thriving because they started aiming for what God has in mind, which is oneness. And so that's a definition of Reengage. Some key distinctives about it. Lindsay and Ashley, feel free to jump in, because I've been fairly distracted. And so if you hear anything that needs to be added to, you got the floor. You can interrupt me.
Okay.
Key distinctives. These are things that, these are true for other groups, I'm sure, but I think I'd say they're especially true for Reengage. We focus on Christ for growth and change. We believe he's going to improve your marriage, not techniques. Like we can, a lot of people, when they fill out their questionnaire that you're going to get, write things like, we want to work on our communication. And okay, that's good. I think most couples need to work on their communication. But if we just listen to that and just give you communication techniques, if you learn how to communicate well, but your heart hasn't changed and you haven't like come in touch with knowing Christ more, you just become better manipulators, If the heart's not changed, communication techniques, they might help a little bit for a season, but behavior management techniques, those things don't change your marriage. Christ alone changes hearts. He alone changes marriages. It's the difference between giving someone a fish or teaching them to fish. You give someone a fish, they'll eat for a day. Teach them the fish, they'll eat for a lifetime. That's the idea. So a lot of times, we focus on Christ for growth and change, and you'll hear that theme. We also look to bring about heart transformation. In other words, what we feel is broken in our marriages they're always honestly the symptoms of a deeper brokenness. What's coming out of us in our marriages, the ways we attack each other, the ways we fail to even engage each other, the ways we fail to pursue each other, all that stuff is a fruit that's coming out of a root, which is our heart. And we'll talk a lot more about that, but you'll find that when you're focusing on the heart, and if your heart changes, the other stuff changes really easily. It's hard because I feel like I could talk all day about these things, and I'm just trying to give you an introduction. We focus on developing biblical community, which might sound like, oh, sure, don't we all? But what we're talking about here is creating a group that learns to speak the truth in love to one another. Ephesians 4:15 says that. Speak the truth in love. Well, chances are you're married to someone who does one of those things well, but not the other. Your spouse might speak the truth, but not in love. You know, your spouse will tell you the truth in a way that might be harsh or puts you down. And it's hard to hear from someone who's speaking the truth to you, but it's not in love. But there's others of us who just want it to be loving, but they won't ever speak the truth. They won't tell you a hard thing that needs to be heard. It's rare that we get into a group of people who are speaking the truth in love. When you know that they're speaking the truth in love, it's the proverb that says, faithful are the wounds of a friend. And the groups are being modeled. The facilitators do a great job of setting the tone where you're learning how to speak to each other in a way that starts to develop biblical community. And I honestly think few of us have really tasted that. Few of us have tasted it in marriage. And don't blame your spouse for that. It's just rare. So people get exposed to biblical community, and it's often the game changer for people. And then the fourth and last one is we emphasize sharing vulnerably. We believe that transformation biblically happens when we allow people to know us as we are. We focus on knowing and being known by one another. Your leaders are picked not because they're experts, but because they do a good job of sharing vulnerably themselves. Every one of your leaders will be able to talk about the argument they had that morning, or the argument they're still in, or the fact that, the hard stuff that they've been through, the hard stuff they continue to go through. They set a tone, and you find yourself realizing, oh, it's safe for me to actually share about my junk. And it's rare for us to go to church and actually open up about what's really going on. Can I see your hands on this one? How many of you have ever been in an argument on the way to church, and then you close the door and you get out of the car and you walk in and you see people like, oh, how you doing? And, oh, doing great. Anybody done doing great, we're blessed? Yeah. It's so hard to be open and honest about the fact that, no, we're mad at each other right now. Or I'll share about my sin, and I'll do it in real general ways. Yeah, I struggle with impatience. Yeah, no, I yell at the kids, or I said something really ugly to my wife, or whatever. Like, everybody's sin looks really ugly specific when you get specific. But once you find this environment becomes safe to share specifically and share vulnerably, transformation starts to go on hyperdrive. It's amazing what God does. He shows up when people start sharing vulnerably. So I'm telling you these things because I'm not expecting you guys to step into this and just be a total open book, but we want to encourage you to get there. We want to encourage you to be at a place where you're sharing openly about stuff that you thought you'd never share. To the extent that you share openly is the extent I think that you're going to experience Christ coming in and glorifying himself through your mess, if you will. Take it from me, I'm not taking a lot of time, and Ashley and Lindsay both, we share about our junk, and we're probably worse sinners than you all. I don't know. Okay, so.
Hey, Ryan, can I interrupt real quick?
Absolutely.
I'm so sorry. This is a technical issue. The Harrises had to jump out of the Austins group because their mic wasn't working. So I think they were going to attempt to sign back on. But have you seen them?
I put them back in there.
You did? Okay, I just checked and they weren't there. Let me go check again.
Okay, yeah, I put them back in a while back, but maybe that didn't work.
Okay, let me check.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the primary way we minister to couples at Christ Chapel is through Reengage. I mean, a lot of people, they look for counseling, and I think counseling, Reengage isn't for everyone. I will just say this is not for couples who cannot have a conversation without it turning into a blow-up conversation. Let me just give a quick analogy. If you're in a small group, just like a single type small group, or just a group of women are meeting together and they're going through a Bible study on the book of Job. Imagine in that small group if every time it came to one woman and they say, well, what did you get from chapter 3? And she says, I don't know, I want to kill myself. You don't have a small group anymore. You've got an intervention, right? That person is not ready to be in that small group because her situation is so dire. I don't think Reengage is a good fit for people who are in that situation where they can't even have a conversation without it, like without, in a sense, hijacking the whole thing. But honestly, if you can have a conversation in a group and function, we've had people who were just hanging by a thread go through Reengage, and their marriages were completely transformed because the process worked. So as long as you're able to be in the process of going through a small group together experience and sharing in a way that is cordial, I think Reengage ends up working well for you. If one of you is not willing to do it, if it's only one spouse, that's another disqualifier. You need both spouses to actually participate. You might have a week where one of you is so angry it doesn't show up. That should be the exception. But I'm just trying to give you an idea of who this is for and who this isn't. But honestly, everybody else, if your marriage is in a good place, you rate your marriage a 7 out of 10, those people get more out of Reengage than anybody else because they're not putting out fires. They're just working on building it up. But any questions? I'm talking a lot, trying to be fast, but I'm probably talking more as a result. Any questions so far on what I'm sharing? Nope. Sweet. Let's get into technical things then. Lindsay, I'm going to call on you because you're the best at this. She's been the one who's been handling so much of the administrative stuff. Today's been a busy day for you, and yesterday was her anniversary, and tomorrow's her birthday, and she's here helping. So, okay. So, are you good for this, Lindsay?
Yeah, I don't have it pulled up as soon as you.
Ashley, maybe. No, Ashley, I'm gonna have you do this. I'm early. Do you want to explain the commitment?
Sure. Okay, so Reengage is a 14-week ministry, which means that we are asking you to commit 14 weeks to showing up and doing your homework. So the next question would logically be, well, what does the homework look like? So homework will take you roughly 30 to 60 minutes each week. During that time, we expect that you will do your homework on your own, and then you will come together with your spouse, and the two of you will share your answers together with your spouse before you come back and meet with your small group. Then when you come to whole group, to large group, there will be teaching and testimonies, kind of like what you saw tonight. So we'll either have a testimony like you saw tonight, or there will be a teaching that will last 25 to 30 minutes. After our whole group, you will meet with your small group, and usually that discussion takes between an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, somewhere in there. We try to stick pretty closely to that. One thing I do want to caution you about, just because my husband and I, we walked into this wall and learned this the hard way when we went through Reengage. And that is what your homework time together will look like. So I'll give you an example. I expected when my husband Josh and I shared our homework together each week that we would be sitting on the couch, we'd have a cup of hot cocoa, we'd be all snuggly, we'd be staring each other eye to eye. There'd be like this intense moment of just connection. My sweet spouse's expectation was that I would give him my order at the fast food line on the way to Reengage, and we would discuss our answers as quickly as possible before we pulled into the parking lot. We obviously did it when we were in person. But if I can just encourage you to do just one thing before you start Reengage, it would be to just go ahead and set up your expectations here. What is it going to look like for you when you do your homework each week?
Yeah. And that little bit of advice really just saved you a lot of potential heartache. So yeah, iron out those expectations on the homework. All right, so Lindsay, are you texting, or do you want to explain how do I start?
Yeah, I was going to try to message her real quick.
Okay, I'll just get started. You should be getting an email. How many of you have already registered online, or anybody here already done the whole registration process? Okay, some of you have already done this, but you're going to be getting a link asking you to register online. That's the next step, and we ask that you kind of make the decision, do it pretty quickly, because we're going to start assigning groups this week, people to different groups. So register online, and you're going to get a questionnaire. Both of you should be getting that questionnaire, and then we're asking both of you to fill it out individually. So, you know, you heard in that video, we rated ourselves as a 2 or as a 7 or 5. There's a question on there, scale of 1 to 10. How would you rate your marriage? There's a rating. It's an opportunity for you just to kind of share specifically where you're at, and we have you guys doing those individually, so you can give us the unvarnished truth. So next thing, attend the info meeting. That's this. So that's already here. There's a formal commitment on there, and that'll be on this next screen right here. So the formal commitment is we're going to ask you, if you want to do it, to commit to spending 1 to 2 hours a week doing the homework. Attend all the group meetings as much as possible. I mean, we understand things come up, but if you're going to miss more than 2, if you know that you're going to be missing more than 2 weeks like this fall, you might want to find a better time to do it, because it's going to throw off the dynamic for everyone, honestly. We're asking you to commit to doing your best to sharing openly and vulnerably with your group, sticking with Reengage for the entire 14 weeks. And then there's that last one. Do you realize that if you do not commit to this process, you may be asked to leave the group? Which is, it's just important, because if you have people going through the motions and they're not really participating and they're kind of sporadic, it affects the dynamic for everybody else in the group. It's no longer really a safe feeling place for everybody else. So I think that's all we've got